Welcome, everyone. I am Christina Brainerd, Community Relations Coordinator for the Melbourne Police Department, and we are here today with Chief David Gillespie and Commander Marc Claycomb. At our most recent Melbourne Police Community Relations Council meeting, we held a special community dialogue event in which we had hundreds of our citizens who came out and shared their voices, and we are very grateful to all of you who came out. But due to the time constraints, we could not get to all the questions. So we're here today to answer some more of these questions and continue this crucial conversation and share the actionable steps that are being taken by the Melbourne Police Department. So to that end, I will turn this over to you, Commander Claycomb and Chief David Gillespie.
Thank you, Christina. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to follow up to our Police Community Relations Council meeting and be able to answer all of the questions that our community has had. We understand that we're short on time, so we are going to do a series of different taped events where we are able to answer all of your questions. And I want to say and start by really talking about the community's response in the aftermath of George Floyd and the incident in Minneapolis. There's a number of different events that have occurred. They haven't reflected favorably on law enforcement, and they haven't reflected favorably on our community. It's important, that's at the national level. At the local level, it's important for us to understand that we have been very civil. We have had protests, we have had marches, we have worked together, we've marched together, we've sat at the table together at a number of different community meetings, and our community has been fantastic. And I appreciate the relationship that we have, and also want to say that the investment that our agency has put in the community didn't start a month ago, 3 weeks ago. It started many years ago, because we have a genuine relationship with our community, particularly with our African American community, because we see the value and we want their trust, and we want to make sure that people see our agency as transparent and one that you can believe in and understand we are going to do best practices and treat everybody with dignity and respect. I'd like to just mention a couple of the programs that we participate in, because I think it's important for the community to understand how much of an investment and how frequent we are in the community participating in the different events that are there and the different programs. We work with the DOC, the Boys and Girls Club, Club Esteem, the PAL League. We are committed to every program, every Red Ribbon event, Neighborhood Watch Committee meetings. Those are the things where we forge relationships and bonds, and we talk about differences, and we hear from you, our community, so that we can better serve you.
Chief, a number of the questions that had come in from the meeting at Joe Davis referred to training. So they asked questions regarding a variety of things that stem from use of force, what's our policy and procedure on it, diversity training that officers get, retraining, recurring training. Can you touch on a little bit of the topics involving that, of what we do now and where we're going from here?
Absolutely. Some of the training that we are focusing on in our agency, specifically to deal with some of the issues of note, include diversity training, and we're going to expand our diversity training. We already do implicit bias training, but we want to go beyond the surface. We want to go a little deeper. We also are going to be doing training on de-escalation. Again, it's expanding our current training program. We've trained on that for quite some time, but it's something that we need to go a little bit further into. We also are going to add into some of our policies the understanding of what the sanctity of life means, the importance of that as a police officer carries out his duties. We want to make sure that in our policy and in our training that we emphasize that there is a duty to intervene. If an officer sees something that is going too far, that we are able to stop that immediately. We want to also have training on autism, how to handle people with mental illness. Mental illness is something that law enforcement agencies struggle with because it can be very challenging at times. And so it takes a lot of experience, but it also takes a lot of training for us to be able to understand what somebody with mental illness is going through and different people have different illnesses, so you have to treat them differently. So you have to make sure that you understand what type of situation you're encountering. We also are looking at our CIT program to be able to have officers work with social workers to be able to address some of these mental health issues in a non-confrontational type setting, so that we're able to provide services for these folks and be able to get them the help that they need, even if that means bringing them into protective custody. Our use of force training is also going to continue to evolve. We are in the process of purchasing what is called a Milo system. It's a shoot, don't shoot scenario-based system that gives officers an opportunity to be able to interact with an individual and make quick determinations as to the correct action that they need to take. And this will give us the opportunity to be able to train more frequently on these types of things. So that's going to help us be able to make things a little more second nature to the officers on the street. The other thing is we're looking at tasers and the training involved there, and really making sure that our taser use is done in situations where people are actively providing active aggression or active resistance towards officers, and making sure that when we do bring people into custody, we do it safely for the individual we're bringing into custody, and also safety for the officers. And tasers do reduce injuries. And so that's something that we will continue to stress and utilize for the safety of our community and the officers as well. I just also want to touch on the fact that we will be looking at policies as well. And when we look at our use of force policy, our taser policy, those are both under review. We are in the process of reviewing all of our policies in the department. And so both of those policies, use of force and tasers, have been next in queue. So we continue to take a look at our current policies and make adjustments as necessary. So those are some of the highlights that we're doing regarding training immediately.
And that's all incredibly important stuff, and certainly pertinent to what's going on in law enforcement right now. And we can actually tie those first two things together with the community involvement and the training that the Melbourne Police Department does by talking about the Community Academy. We're not the only one that does it, so if you're not in the city of Melbourne, you can certainly look to other agencies for this opportunity. But the Community Academy allows the general public to come in and actually sit in the seat of a law enforcement officer, learn some of the training that we are provided and why we are provided that training, and actually go through some scenarios to be able to deploy that training and experience. You really get a very different view of law enforcement when you're taking that training, and that for us is 2 hours a night every week for an 8-week period when COVID's not happening. And it is allows for ride-along, so you actually get to go out and see real-time law enforcement as well, and that is a good way to tie those two things together, not only receiving the training that we do, but making that face-to-face contact, having that dialogue, and really seeing what it's like to be in law enforcement.
Yeah, absolutely.
Chief, another one of the topics that has come up throughout the questions is reforms. Where are we now and where are we headed?
So that's a great question, because we have received a number of different inquiries about what is going to be different after the George Floyd incident. We've had a number of different times when we've talked about changes in law enforcement, but the community, I understand, wants to know what is going to be some of the reforms from the Melbourne Police Department. And I can tell you that there's a number of different things that we're doing. One is we are reviewing and making adjustments to our use of force and taser policies. So I think those are two things immediately. Another thing that I did is suspend the use of the vascular neck restraint. And so that's something that we'll take a look at down the road, but we have suspended its use for now. We also have been working on a body-worn camera program, and we're going to continue to expedite that as quick as we can, because we want to make sure that our interactions are on video or on camera. It provides safety for the community, for the officers, and it also adds to the transparency of the agency as well. The other thing is, I've talked about the training, making sure that we have best practices and make sure that our training is the best of the best. And so we're going to continue to do scenario-based training. We're going to continue to incorporate de-escalation, sanctity of life, duty to intervene in all of the training that we do. And I think it's important that we continue to increase our diversity training. And one of the things that we really want to do here is work with our local community to be able to understand some of the history of the city of Melbourne. I think the city has a rich tradition and a rich history, and I think that goes a long way for officers to understand what some of that history is, and also for us to be able to continue to listen to our community and really understand the dialogue, because that's what these meetings are about. These meetings are about us talking about the changes, but in order for us to really hit the mark, we need to really listen. We need to hear from the community about your concerns and what's important to you. And so as we continue to do that, I think you're going to see that our effort, our commitment to the community, to different community leaders, to different community meetings is going to continue to just excel. And that's something that I look forward to, because I think that's where we're really going to be able to continue beyond the reforms that I just spoke about, because I think there's more that we can do.
So as we wrap up, I did want to bring kind of full circle from what you started with. The important part, one of the important parts of this conversation is that we've been working on a lot of this for quite some time, and it preceded Minneapolis, it preceded Atlanta, it preceded Washington, and two of the things that I really want to focus on that really encapsulate everything that we've talked about today are our partnership with Hey Blue, and that partnership that exists with Big Brothers and Big Sisters of Central Florida, and the mentoring and the prevention and the partnership and connectivity, positive connectivity we have with those groups, as well as what we've been working on with the Center for Collaboration and Central Florida Cares and Brevard Cares to get more training and more professionals involved on our team with the mobile response team for crisis intervention training. And those have been going on for well over a year. Hey Blue has been actually 2 years at this point. So we want to thank them for their partnerships, but we want to make it very clear that we've been doing this for a long time. This isn't a knee-jerk reaction to recent events. So I do appreciate, I am Marc Claycomb. I'm the commander of the Community Services Division and also the PIO for the Melbourne Police Department. Chief, I know you have a very busy schedule, so I want to thank you for taking time out of that to join us today.
Well, thank you very much, Mark. I appreciate that. I appreciate the opportunity to be able to close these questions and be able to get this information out. I also appreciate the work that you and your staff do on a regular basis every day. That's what's making a difference for our department. That's what's making a difference in our community. And I want to thank, the officers from the Melbourne Police Department for the commitment that they give every day. Every day we have 170 sworn officers that leave their house ready to lay their life on the line for this community. And despite what the narrative is out there around this country, they continue to serve and they continue to commit to doing the job that they've sworn themselves to do. And I'm very proud to work in a very professional organization. I also want to thank Chief Nelson Moya from Palm Bay and Chief Rick Wiley from the West Melbourne Police Department, because they have been with us. And also Sheriff Ivey came to the event at Shiloh and the Brevard County Sheriff's Office. I want to thank those leaders for the relationship that we have and for coming to the meetings and the marches and being able to answer the questions that we get from the community, because it goes a long way for us to be able to show not just transparency between individual agencies, but transparency that we work together, we share information, we all understand there's a greater dynamic than going out and arresting people. It's about forging relationships. It's about treating people with respect and dignity. It's about having our community, because we do serve you and we are your police department, and we want you to be able to see inside what's going on, because that's important for you to have faith and trust in what we do and how we do it. And lastly, I just want to thank the community again, because we have one of the best communities I've ever seen in how we have handled this in a professional way. When we have questions, I have seen some of the most well-run meetings, very professional. Even though this is an emotional issue, emotional topics, it can get heated. But our community has just done absolutely fantastic. And I really, my hat's off to the leaders and the folks that have really organized these meetings, because they really have done a fantastic job. So thank you.
And on that note, I do want to say what I've said before, and I will continue to say, it doesn't matter how well law enforcement does their job. We are not able to do our job to the best of our ability without that positive partnership with the community in which we serve. So we thank you for joining us today. Thank you for watching, and we look forward to the next opportunity.
Thank you, Commander Claycomb, and thank you, Chief David Gillespie. And thank you to all of you who are showing up and sharing your voices and are willing to ask the difficult questions. Our next Melbourne Police Community Relations Council meeting is going to be Thursday, July 9th. It's at Carver Park Community Center. That's 1092 Swan Street in Melbourne, and it starts at 7 p.m. sharp. So please wear a face covering or mask because we will be practicing social distancing. And as always, we encourage your comments and questions on our social media platforms. But just a reminder that these sites are not monitored on a 24-hour basis. So if you have an emergency, call 911, or for a non-emergency, call 321-608-6731 to speak to an officer. Thank you so much.